So good evening. My name is Tara Rickaby and I'm the chair of the Committee of Adjustment for Kenora. As we gather, we recognize that we're on Treaty 3 lands, which are steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations and Métis people today. We continue to be thankful for the partnerships with Indigenous people. This is a regular meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for June the 18th, 2025. The committee's been delegated authority by the Council of the City of Kenora under the Ontario Planning Act to make decisions on applications for variances from the city zoning bylaw and for applications for consent for land division. With respect to applications for minor variance, the committee will use the 4 tests to approve with or without conditions, refuse an application, or defer consideration of an application. So prior to calling the meeting actually to order, to all members of the public attending virtually, and we're not sure if we have anybody, please send a private message to the Secretary Treasurer and inform them of your legal name and your mailing address so it can be entered into the meeting records. Please ensure your microphone is on mute and be mindful of what is visible to the public in your surroundings. All persons addressing the committee shall state their full name and mailing address and must direct their comments to myself, the chair. Please note this meeting is being recorded, and by continuing to be in the meeting, you're consenting to be recorded. For those attending virtually, tap leave meeting to opt out and exit the session. When it's time for public comments, I will address the participant by the name that was registered for those attending virtually. And I will just, I'll look at hands that are being held up and try and do it in order. Yeah, so just raise your hands. Please be considerate of other interested parties, city staff and committee members. Unruly behavior or criticism or insults will not be tolerated. Decisions will be mailed or emailed to the applicant agent and to all other interested parties who provided their mailing address or email address to the Secretary Treasurer. The notice of appeal for minor variance applications must be filed with the Secretary Treasurer within 20 days of the making of the decision. The notice of appeal for a land division application must be filed with the Secretary Treasurer within 20 days of the mailing of the notice. Other than the applicant, only a specified person or public body as defined in section 1, subsection 1 of the Planning Act has the ability to appeal the decision made by the Kenora Committee of Adjustment to the Ontario Land Tribunal. The Secretary Treasurer for the Kenora Committee of Adjustment is Melissa Shaw, and the Associate Planner is Tara Beer. All right, so do I have a declaration of pecuniary interest from anybody? If so, a general nature thereof? No, nothing? Okay, and what about from a meeting that you were not in attendance? So that would have been back to April. Nothing? Thank you. Any additions to the agenda? Okay. Approval of minutes. So from the regular meeting of April 16, 2025. You have a mover, please. Linda, and a seconder, Renee. Any comments, questions? All good, okay. And may I have a show of hands for approval, please? And that's carried unanimously. Any correspondence that we haven't already received? No? Adjournment requests? All right. So we're going to be now considering applications for minor variance. As I noted, the decisions will be made using the 4 tests. Though that means, does the variance maintain the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw? Is the application desirable development? And is it minor in nature? So the first file is D13-2508. And would you like to come forward and speak to the application? You can stay where you are if you can speak loudly enough. Yeah.
Oh, just state our name.
Charlotte,
Charlotte.
next one. Yeah.
Oh,
you're the next one, Charlotte.
I thought you said, oh, no. Okay, it's William and Donna Tate. And it's to do with number 10, Henry Street. And it's a minor variance to put a shed on it.
All right, thank you. Ms. Bader, would you like to provide the planning report, please?
Yes. I have a brief presentation. It does not go into the same detail that the planning report did. I'm happy to answer any questions on the planning report that I don't cover in the presentation. So this is minor variance application D 13-2508 for 18 Henry Street. This application is to permit a shed on a vacant residential lot. Section 3.34.1A of the City of Kenora zoning bylaw requires an accessory use to be on the same lot as the principal use to which it is accessory, and that it exists to aid and contribute to the principal use to carry out the function of that principal use. So this application is proposing to permit an accessory use on a lot that doesn't contain a principal use. This is a site plan and location map. Henry Street is just north of the Rabbit Lake Trailer Park, for those of you that are familiar with that area. And the site plan shows the proposed location on the vacant lot of where the shed is proposed to go. City of Kenora, staff had no concerns with this application. We did receive comments from the Ministry of Natural Resources that they had no M&R related concerns with the application. We did receive one comment from a member of the public stating that they had no objections to the application. A full copy of that comment was provided to the committee. For the planning review, first, the provincial planning statement 2024. The PPS states the settlement areas shall be the focus of growth and development. The subject lands are within our settlement area boundary, so it is consistent with this section of the PPS. And as the chair said, a minor variance application is required to meet the 4 tests of minor variance. The first being the intent of the City of Kenora official plan. The City of Kenora official plan contains guiding principles and objectives. One such principle is the neighborhood design principle that states that Kenora shall promote desirable built form in any development or redevelopment. And one of the objectives under this principle is to promote built form that addresses the needs of present and future generations. This application is proposed to aid the property owners in their transition from a larger property, and it does maintain the intent of the neighborhood design guiding principle by addressing the needs of current residents. The next test is the intent of the City of Kenora zoning bylaw. The application is seeking relief to permit a shed on a vacant residential lot. This is a relief request from the requirement that accessory uses be located on the same lot as a principal use and the principal use to which it is accessory. So this variance is requested as the applicants are moving from their current primary residence and downsizing, which results in them requiring additional space for storage. The intent of this section of the zoning bylaw is to maintain the character of residential areas and intends to limit misuse of vacant properties for storage, workshop uses, or informal business uses. I've recommended a number of conditions on this variance to address these intentions of the zoning bylaw. And it is my planning opinion that with those conditions enforced, it does maintain the intent of the zoning bylaw. The third test is desirable for the appropriate development of the land. The proposed variance will enable the applicants to locate the storage shed on the subject property without a principal use. It is desirable for their use of the property that they own. The land is currently vacant residential land, and the proposed storage shed will enable the applicants to utilize their land. The storage shed is proposed to be located in a location on the lot that's consistent where typically accessory structures are located, and it won't limit the development of a future dwelling duplex on the subject lands. The last test is the variance minor in nature. The requested relief is not expected to have a significant impact on the surrounding area. The applicants are proposing to locate the shed on the lot in a way that is consistent with locations for accessory structures. And the application is not expected to impact the ability of adjacent neighbors to utilize their properties for permitted uses. Recommendation, it is recommended that minor variance application D 13-2508 to seek relief from the City of Kenora zoning bylaw 101/2015, section 3.341A be approved to permit a storage shed on a lot without a principal use to which it is accessory, subject to the following conditions. 1, no home occupation or home industry shall be permitted on the property until such time that a primary use is established. 2, no outdoor storage of personal belongings shall be permitted on the property. 3, the variance approval is limited to 1 shed, 288 square feet in size. 4, no plumbing shall be permitted as part of the storage shed structure. And 5, the storage shed shall be located consistently with the site plan provided as part of this application and shown as figure 2 in this report. That is it.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add? No? Okay.
No, it's just a request for a shed.
Is there anybody in the public who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Or,
Well, you said there was one person that
right,
spoke in favor of.
we got something in writing,
Oh, you did.
yeah. And anybody who wishes to speak against the application? All right. Committee, questions? Okay, I have a couple of questions. So will there always only be a shed on this property?
Well, possibly not. It all depends on whether we like where we're going. So there could, in the future, be a home on it,
Okay,
but for now, it's just gonna be a storage shed.
You see, we've been on Black Sturgeon for 46 years. It's time that both her and I got out into Kenora now,
Yeah.
to town.
We need storage.
And, we have a place at the Life Lease that we're not in it, because we still have a place there, which isn't selling. And I had to have some place to store it. 46 years of gathering, and that's the reason why we applied for the shed.
okay, thank you. So now, I wonder who is responsible to enforce these conditions? So I'm just wondering how, is it just gonna be something that if a neighbor has a complaint, that's how that'll happen, or?
Yes, typically we do rely on a complaint system, for, enforcement of the bylaws. Specific to one of the conditions, the plumbing condition, that will be verified upon the submission of a building permit. No plumbing will be permitted for the building permit, so I perform the zoning check on the building permit, so I will verify that condition through that process. And additionally, condition 5, the storage shed being located in the location that's consistent with the site plan they provided as part of the application. That will also be verified through the building permit process. 1, 2, and 3, or 1 and 2, will be enforced through by law enforcement process.
So I feel that it is not desirable to build a farm in this neighborhood. There's a multi-residential on the south side and single-family dwellings that all along the Henry Street. And it's an excellent developable lot that could just by their own rights, they could have multifamily on that property, and I don't think it maintains the character of the neighborhood. So those are my comments. Now, the committee, oh, yes, Andrea?
Yeah, I suppose, I guess what I understood, or I guess it wasn't in the application, but what I had inferred was that it was part of a transition in like potentially not a 2-year build project, but like maybe a longer term build project, but it doesn't sound like a build project is necessarily the intent at all. So.
Any other comments? Chris?
How come there's no timeline associated with the conditions?
Do you mean like,
Yeah, there's no date, there's no like end date, like do this by this, or
so in terms of, like, are you speaking to, sorry, which condition would you like a timeline associated with?
basically the first one, now the wording on the home industry shall be permitted on the property until such time that a primary use is established.
So that is what I'm intending by that is that, until if the variance is approved and the shed is located on the property, no home occupation or industry would be permitted to be, occurring on that property unless there's a time where a dwelling is constructed. That's what I was intending by that condition and that language.
Well, there's never been any indication that we want to put a business on there.
No, that these, the conditions recommended, in this are to maintain the intent of the zoning bylaw. I mean, your application wasn't proposing a business, but through the conditions, we're stating that if you're approved for the shed, you cannot operate a business, a home business.
That's fine.
You have to think too, down the road, that these apply to future owners of the property as well, right? So.
Well, one of my concerns is, and I mentioned it to Tara when we came in here to get the variance. There are places around town that have sea cans on them and tent covers for vehicles that they look terrible. And we're planning on putting a constructed shed on it that is going to look nice, so that if we ever do decide that we are going to build or put a modular home on it, that we can. And add to it. We're not looking to make the neighborhood unacceptable.
No, I didn't take that as your intent on that. I'm just
Do we-
defending the clause for a future business in that. Given that, you sell the property with a shed on it to somebody else down the road, that also would prevent them from carrying out.
But it's not a permanent structure. It will not be a permanent structure. It's something that's gonna be able to be moved. We could sell it somewhere down the road if we chose to.
So it's got no concrete pad.
No. It has there will be a pad that it will sit on.
Okay. So, there is a motion in front of us if there are no other comments or questions. All right, would you mind reading that, please?
Certainly. That application D 13-2508 to seek relief from the city of Kenora zoning bylaw 101-2015, section 3.341A. To permit a storage shed on a lot without a principal use to which it is accessory is approved and subject to the following conditions. 1, no home occupation or home industry shall be permitted on the property until such time that a primary use is established. 2, no outdoor storage of personal belongings shall be permitted on the property. 3, the variance approval is limited to one shed, 288 square feet in size. Number 4, no plumbing shall be permitted as part of the storage shed structure. And number 5, the storage shed shall be located consistently with the site plan provided as part of the application and shown in figure 2, which is also provided in the decision.
Okay, mover, please. Linda, seconder, Robert. Any questions, comments, discussion? No, okay, all in favor, please. Okay. So that motion is carried.
Second.
Mhm.
So you have received an approval here this evening. That was a majority vote. It will be subject to a 20-day appeal period. That appeal period will also mean that we cannot issue a building permit until such time. So that appeal period will take us to July 8th. After that date, assuming there are no appeals, you will be able to receive the issuance of your building permit for the 288 square foot structure.
Thank you very much.
And you are welcome to stay, although you don't need to if you don't want to.
So we're gonna stay.
Okay. Okay, next is D 13-2509. And we do have an agent. If you wouldn't mind, you can sit where you are, or you can sit at the table.
Sure, I didn't know things had like changed. Do you have a presentation too for this one?
I do. I'll present very similarly.
Okay.
And then if you wanted to add anything,
No, I don't need to add anything. It's a request for two line variances for garage seeking relief on the distance from the main home and from the rear lot line. And it's on the hill going down from Beaver Brae, which is 6th Street North on the bottom and 14th Avenue.
This planning report, again, my presentation will summarize the report. If you have any questions that I don't have in the presentation, happy to answer them. This is for D 132509 at 1402 6th Street North. So the purpose of this application is to permit the construction of an accessory garage with a 0-meter rear yard setback and a 1.5 meter distance from the main building. The zoning bylaw, as we can see in the table, accessory structures shall not be built closer than 1 meter to any interior side or rear lot line. Accessory structures shall not be built within 2 meters of the main building or structure. This is the site plan provided by the applicant. So we have 6th Street North on the south and then 14th Avenue North on the west, showing the proposed garage on the north end of the property. City of Kenora staff had no concerns with this application. Staff did advise that if the entrance to the property is proposed to be changed or widened, a new entrance permit approval would be required. And then additionally, that staff advised that there is no on-street parking on 14th Avenue North. So if the applicant does choose to add a secondary dwelling unit above the proposed garage, parking would need to be considered. The Ministry of Natural Resources had no M&R related concerns with this application. Synergy North had no concerns with this application. And at the time of report submission, no comments were received from members of the public. Again, the provincial planning statement 2024 states that settlement areas shall be the focus of growth and development. This application is for a detached garage with potential for a secondary dwelling unit within the settlement area. It is proposed, the lot is serviced by municipal water and sewer services. So this application is consistent with this policy of the PPS. The 4 tests. Does the variance maintain the intent of the official plan? Section 2.2 of the City of Kenora official plan contains guiding principles and objectives. Principle 1, sustainable development, states that Kenora shall promote sustainable development to enhance the quality of life for present and future generations. One of the objectives under this principle is to promote compact development by using land and existing infrastructure efficiently. This application is proposing to construct a detached garage and potentially a secondary dwelling unit on an existing developed residential lot serviced by municipal services. So as a result, it is staff's opinion that this application maintains the intent of the official plan. The intent of the City of Kenora zoning bylaw. The intent of the zoning bylaw for a 1 meter rear yard setback for accessory structures is to maintain separation between accessory structures on abutting properties for safety purposes and maintaining the character of the area. So the first variance is seeking relief from this provision to the lot line, which the rear lot line in this case abuts an unopened municipal lane. The unopened municipal lane is utilized by a handful of properties for rear yard access and contains overhead hydro lines. Requirements relating to setbacks from the overhead hydro lines will have to be met by the property owner during the building permit process. As the variance is abutting an unopened municipal lane, it does maintain distance between the proposed structure and any structures on abutting properties. Fire separation requirements will be addressed through the building permit process. The Ontario Building Code has requirements, so no matter what the outcome of the variances, they have to meet fire separation. So as a result, it is considered, or variance, the first variance is considered to maintain the intent of the zoning bylaw. Similarly, the intent of the setback from the main building is also intended to maintain safety for fire separation purposes. The second variance to reduce this setback will also be addressed through the building permit process by fire separation requirements. So as a result, the second variance maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw. Staff have reviewed the dimensions of the existing dwelling and proposed garage and have confirmed that it would not result in a relief request for lot coverage. Is the application desirable for the appropriate development of the land? The proposed variance will enable the construction of a detached garage and potentially secondary dwelling unit, which is a permitted use on the subject property. The land is currently residential and the proposed development would maintain this use of the property. Is the variance minor in nature? The requested relief is 0 meter rear yard setback and a 1.5 meter setback from the main structure for a detached garage. Proposed variance is not expected to have significant impact on the surrounding area, nor is it expected to impact the ability of adjacent neighbors to utilize their properties for permitted uses.
Good too.
The recommendation for file D13-2509 to seek relief from the City of Kenora zoning bylaw 101-2015, section 3.34.1BV and 3.341BBI. Be approved to permit a detached garage with a 0 meter rear lot line setback and a 1.5 meter setback from the main structure, subject to the following conditions. No part of the detached garage, including eaves, shall encroach on the unopened city lane. The rear property line abutting the city lane shall be established by an Ontario land surveyor, and the foundation of the proposed garage shall be staked by an Ontario land surveyor prior to the issuance of a building permit. Thank you.
Do you have anything to add or? No, all right. Anybody in the audience who wishes to speak for or against this application? All right, committee members, any questions? Okay, Robin.
And just one, between the existing home and the garage, that separation is a lot less. So how, and that's a safety reason that it exists at the larger scale level. So how can is that addressed in terms of the building permit, in terms of more insulation, or how does that work?
I think Janice, as the Director of Building Services, is best to answer that question.
So the building code is in black and white, so the separation distance can change depending on the structure of the building or the fire protection, if it's a non-flammable surface, if it's has glazing, if there's windows or doors or openings. So the distance between buildings can be greater or less than depending on types of things. So if they use a different wall surface, something that's not flammable, they might need to be closer. If there's windows, they would have to be further away. So those are things that will be confirmed through the building permit process.
Okay.
So it will change the design. They came in with something that the building was, you know, had windows or doors or something, and it was at this too close, it would be rejected from the building. And they would have to change it.
Any other questions?
I just, for transparency's sake, I questioned about, building with the Provincial Planning Act, accessory buildings, more buildings on sites. But my question was regarding Airbnbs. Could you just respond to that for the public?
The city does not regulate short-term rentals. Our official plan and zoning bylaw don't contain policies relating to those at this time.
The province though is requesting us to free up and allow more buildings on single lots because of the shortage of homes.
Yes, the province has made changes to allow for secondary dwelling units. So the city has changed, made amendments to our bylaw in the past few years to allow for secondary dwelling units, to increase housing stock.
So until there's something done by city council regarding the type of dwellings and use of, this is outside our realm. Okay, thank you.
I just have a comment about shooting that rear lot line. Can we add to the motion or the condition to say, in order to ensure that the setback is appropriate to the application? Could we do that? So my concern there is that so you get the line shot by a surveyor. And so what do you need to know from that? That's what all I wanted to know, make sure that it will then be reflected into what the application is for.
And, Madam Chair, so do you want condition number 2 to reference the 0 meter setback?
Yeah, and
No
because it
further-
also then will, because the other building has to be staked, right? And so you're gonna wanna know what that dimension is exactly too. I'm guessing that's why you want it staked. Right? Is that right?
Yeah, the intention of having it staked is to ensure that we are meeting the approval or decision of the committee if it is approved.
Right. So if both are done, then you're getting your answer for the site plan, right? That was my point.
So the rear property line, the rear property line abutting the city lane shall be established by an Ontario land surveyor to ensure the setback at 0 point.
Set, or, and to ensure that, which is the second one. Oh, so that in order to ensure that, condition 3 can be met as well. Because if there's not the space for the site plan, right?
Madam Secretary, through the chair, could you also change it to undeveloped laneway instead of unopened, because it remains part of a plan of subdivision?
I guess that's one more question.
Yes.
Okay, so it's undeveloped, meaning,
It means that there is no city roadway infrastructure, it is just grass and trees and rocks. But it is on a plan of subdivision as a laneway, so if in the future the city had need of such, we could develop it as a lane.
and that wouldn't have any effect on how close we are to the,
We have circulated this to, our roads department, and they have not indicated that need for a lane in this location, but certainly if they were to open it as a lane, it would be tight, which is why they can't have use over hanging over.
and the people that access the back of their properties via that is just been by foot. And they can still get through that, that area is still gonna be there, it exists as is, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? All right, so, would you mind reading that
Sure. That application,
motion? Thank you. Sorry.
that application D13-2509 to seek relief from the City of Kenora bylaw 101-2015, section 3.341B5 and section 3.341B7 is approved to permit a garage with a 0 meter rear lot line setback and a 1.5 meter setback from the main structure, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, no part of the detached garage, including eaves, shall encroach on the undeveloped city lane. Number 2, the rear property line abutting the city lane shall be established by an Ontario land surveyor, and to ensure that condition number 3 can be satisfied. And number 3, the foundation of the proposed garage shall be staked by an Ontario land surveyor prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Um. So I'm just thinking about referencing it back to the site plan. To show those dimensions. That's what it is, to ensure that condition 3. Reflects. The site plan.
What language? Located consistent with the site plan provided. Here, there's like a site plan provided, right? Yeah. Okay, so through you, Madam Chair, may I just read the amended condition number 3? Yes. Okay, so condition number 3 would be the foundation of the proposed garage shall be staked by an Ontario land surveyor prior to the issuance of a building permit located consistently with the site plan provided in the application.
Do you have a comment?
Sorry. Did you ask the public or did I miss that?
I'm sorry,
Did you ask the public for their input?
I did earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought so. Just double
Okay.
checking.
all right. So may I have a mover, please? Andrea and a seconder, Carrick. All in favor?
That was 6 in favor, 1 against, correct? Yeah, correct. Okay, thank you. Where's our agent? Thank you for being here with us this evening. You have received an approval with a majority vote in favor. It will be subject to a 20-day appeal period. That will take us to July 8th. So assuming there are no appeals received, that will mean that we can work towards that building permit application during that time, but we will not be able to issue a building permit until after that appeal deadline. You will receive notice of this decision via email tomorrow. Thanks for being here.
All right, next on the agenda is D 13-2510. And do we have somebody here representing that application? Yes, okay. So you can either speak from where you are, or you can go to the table right over there to your right.
Last minor variance, then there's plan division.
Okay, so do you have anything you'd like to tell us first about your application?
It's pretty straightforward. Understanding that Kenora is wanting more housing. And the tiny house, movement is something that is, very prevalent. We see lots of it online, that kind of thing. And we thought this is something we could do in our yard, and we learned that the, city was open to that idea. And so we decided to pursue putting a tiny house in the backyard. We know it's not a big major step in terms of solving any housing crisis, but it's kind of like the story of the young boy who goes on the ocean during low tide, and there's a whole bunch of starfish on the ocean, on the beach, he's throwing them back. And there's thousands of starfish there, and someone says, "Why are you doing that? You can't help all these starfish." And nobody says, "No, but I can help this one." So it's only one tiny house, but it's a step. And so we want to put a tiny house there. We think it's a good use of the area, the land, and good for our as we get closer to retirement, supplemental income. So I am almost 63 and I'm a bit of a builder. So this is something I can do now. I'd like to do it while I'm able. I want to keep it in line with my present garage. And there's just enough room to tuck in a small tiny house there. So the only thing I would ask, like, it was a little bit of a surprise to me, not a huge surprise, but the idea of having to do a survey and have the stakes put in the ground by a surveyor. However, the property lines are really basic and things like fences and that kind of thing have been established there for probably decades. So as far as needing a survey and having it staked out, for me, I'm like, I'd like to know what the real benefit of that is. Because it seems that presently, you know, everything's pretty straightforward. And a survey might move a building a couple inches this way or a few inches that way. But it's gonna be a couple thousand, $2,000-3,000 in time. And I'm like, what is the actual benefit of that? And how does it really make any difference? And so, just with my own situation, thinking about time and expenses, might not be a big deal to somebody who has big pockets, but I like to be wise with what my resources are. So what are we going to gain from that? How necessary is that? And can we do anything, move the building 6 inches one way or another, so that we don't necessitate a survey?
Okay, so what we'll do then, is we will hear from the planner. And then we'll hear if there's anybody who wishes to speak to this application as well.
Sure.
And then some of this might come up in the discussion at the committee.
Sure.
And it might help you understand, why the condition is there as well. All right,
Sure.
okay, so, thank you, and Ms. Vader.
There we are. This is D13-2510, located at 645 16th Avenue North. Purpose of this minor variance application is to permit the construction of a detached secondary dwelling unit with a 1.2 meter exterior side yard setback and to increase the maximum accessory structure lot coverage. So the City of Kenora zoning bylaw has a minimum exterior side yard of 4 meters. This application is proposing 1.2 meters. And the accessory structure provisions of the zoning bylaw limits accessory structures to not exceed 10% lot coverage of the total lot area. This application is proposing 14.5%. The site plan provided by the applicant, we have 9th Street North to the south of the site plan and 16th Avenue North to the east. City staff had no concerns with this application and stated that the application does not create any concerns with the municipal right of way. The Ministry of Natural Resources had no MNR related concerns with this application. Synergy North had no concerns. We did receive one comment from a member of the public. The comment had concerns with safety, specifically that 9th Street North is not built to accommodate 2 vehicles meeting. Additionally, there was concerns with the location of the existing detached garage and the proposed secondary dwelling unit, creating a blind spot for traffic. And then there was also concerns relating to the site plan, traffic volumes, parking, units permitted on one lot, and the precedent. So I did answer all these questions in the report, and I'll answer them again. The site plan provided by the applicant was based on the property owner's knowledge of his lot lines. Comments were received from city staff from various departments. There was no identified concern with the application creating concerns with the right of way. The applicant has demonstrated subject land satisfied the zoning bylaw requirements for parking spaces, which is 1 per unit. The addition of 1 new unit to the lands is not anticipated to increase traffic volumes to a degree that requires any additional traffic studies. In the R1 zone, the City of Kenora bylaw allows 3 units. And each minor variance application is considered individually and must meet the 4 tests of variance. A full copy of that public comment was provided to the committee, in advance. The planning review, the provincial planning statement, contains policies relating to housing. The PPS states that planning authorities shall provide for an appropriate range and mix of housing options and densities to meet the projected needs of current and future residents. To do so by permitting and facilitating all housing options required to meet the social, health, economic, and well-being requirements of current and future residents. As this application is proposed to permit a secondary dwelling unit and contribute to the housing supply in the city, it is consistent with these policies of the PPS. The first test to maintain the intent of the official plan. I have stated this section of the official plan, I think, twice already tonight. One of the objectives under our official plan is to promote compact development by using land and existing infrastructure efficiently. This application proposes to construct a secondary dwelling unit on an existing developed residential lot serviced by municipal services. So as a result, it is staff's opinion that this application maintains the intent of the official plan. Does it meet the intent of the City of Kenora zoning bylaw? The exterior side yard setback is required to ensure separation between municipal right-of-way and structures on private property. Variance, the first variance seeking to permit a 1.2 meter exterior side yard setback maintains separation from the municipal right-of-way and is proposed to align with the existing legal non-conforming garage on the property. The city roads department commented that the proposed variance does not create a concern for the right-of-way. As a result, it is considered that the first variance maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw provision restricting the lot coverage of accessory structures is intended to maintain the character of the neighborhood and restrict the development of accessory structures that are not compatible in scale. The second variance is requesting a 4.5% increase to the accessory structure lot coverage. The proposed secondary dwelling unit is not of a scale that's incompatible with the surrounding area. So as a result, it is considered to maintain the intent of the zoning bylaw. The third test, is it desirable for the appropriate development of the land? The proposed variance will enable the construction of a secondary dwelling unit. It is a permitted use on the subject property. The land is currently residential and the proposed development would enable the addition of a housing unit, which is desirable. Is the variance minor? The requested relief to permit a secondary dwelling unit with a 1.2 meter exterior side yard and to increase the accessory structure lot coverage by 4.5% is not expected to have a significant impact on the surrounding area, nor will it impact the ability of adjacent neighbors to utilize their properties for permitted uses. It is considered minor. It is recommended that minor variance application D132510 to seek relief from the City of Kenora zoning bylaw section 4.2.3E and 3.341BBI be approved to permit a detached secondary dwelling unit with a 1.2 meter exterior side yard and to permit accessory structures to have a 4.5% coverage of the total lot area, subject to the following conditions. First, the exterior side lot line abutting 9th Street North and the rear lot line abutting the city lane shall be established by an Ontario land surveyor. 2, the foundation of the proposed secondary dwelling unit shall be staked by an Ontario land surveyor prior to the issuance of the building permit. And 3, the secondary dwelling unit shall be constructed consistently with the site plan provided by the applicant. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything else to add, Mr. Lewin?
Well, one of the things is, I had a thought. So I can't say with certainty about my fence being on the property line because I don't have a survey. But my neighbor has a stake there and a shed that he says is right on the property line. And I have no reason to doubt it. And I measured 50 feet from that, and that's where my fence is. So if it's out by inches, but it's basically, so I measured the 1.2 meters from my fence. That's what my garage is back, and I just want to have it line up with my garage. I did have the thought that if the property line, if the fence is actually inside my property line, and the property line is outside of that fence, then by sticking, religiously to that 1.2, it might actually end up pushing the structure closer to, which we would not want, I consider. Right, so the intent is to make sure it stays away from. So I just think that I'm trying to understand the necessity of the
Survey.
survey and the staking, because it has the potential to end up not wanting what you would want. Because if the property line is closer to the road than my fence is, it would move the structure that much closer to the road. So, and then I would think, well, knowing that would not be a desirable effect, but keeping it in line with the garage, or even bringing it back, a few inches if we needed to be. But it just makes me think of, what is the survey in the big picture really going to accomplish?
Okay.
Because it seems like they're spending quite a bit of money for.
So you'll note from your application and the process that the zoning bylaw is really, it comes down to measurement, right?
Sure.
And so that's why I'm thinking that's why that condition is in there, to ensure, similarly to the application before yours, to make sure that everything's going to line up the way it says on the site plan. So I'm going to ask you if you think that if there was that discrepancy and it would become moving closer to the road, should we maybe say that the front of the tiny house shall not be closer to the road than the existing accessory garage?
That is at the
Is that
discretion
something
of the
that would be-
committee. They can add conditions to the approval if that's the
But that would be
intent.
something that the planning department would be comfortable with then?
We can enforce that through the building permit process.
So I have to ask now, is there anybody who wishes to speak in favor or against this application?
I am not, I'm against the variance being granted.
May we have your name, please?
Todd Spencer,
Okay, and your address, please?
646, 16th. I think we're gonna create an unsafe traffic here, because it's heavily school bus, pedestrians, skier, kids, it's very busy. I don't believe that 9th Street North in that area, and I actually talked to one of the roads guys or about it, up the Delano. I don't believe it's built to standard at that point. There's a catch basin on the north side. If you pull that sketchy, there's a catch basin on the north side of the road that when two vehicles meet there, somebody has to take that catch basin. I hear nothing but vehicles bottoming out there all the time. The back lane on the property on 16th Avenue, if this bill, I'm not opposed to the building, but there's no variance required for this. This building could be on the property without compounding the safety hazard. When you come out of the lane, you cannot see either way. It's a very unsafe. And if that small building goes closer, it lines up with the house and the garage that don't meet the bylaws right now, it's going to create even more of a problem. It's not safe. I'm in the best interest of the kids and the traffic goes through in the morning. There's no sidewalks, street. I don't believe it's a standard. I don't believe it's a standard. I need somebody from the town to look at it for this proposal is granted, because there's really a bad spot. I'm not against housing. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want to see a hazard created. The bush where the trees are on the north side there. Where the proposed drawing is, when you come out of that laneway facing north, which is faces the bottom of the screen, you can't see right now, the way it is, with my half and I pull out of there, you can't see. So now, we're gonna put another building there where it's gonna make it even worse.
Okay,
I,
thank
I, I'm very concerned about safety aspect of that. 9th Street North, that area needs to be revisited.
okay, thank
And
you.
what Jeff's saying there about the property fence, like, if the property fence are, like you said, not in the right spot, or the fence line is, like, closer to your property, you gotta move closer. That road needs to be redone. It's not good.
Thank you. So I just want to, this application was circulated to the roads department, correct?
Sorry, I just wanted to think. That this variance doesn't need to be granted to put housing on this lot. It doesn't need, to be. It can go on the lot and meet the current bylaw. I don't know why it wouldn't be to prevent that happening.
So that was circulated,
Yes, it was circulated to the roads department.
okay, and there were no,
I think probably the approval of it was done on the GIS map. So I don't know if anybody actually visited to measure like what, or to look at vision lines there, because it's not safe.
so currently it is not safe.
Currently, it's not safe, no.
So it-
Currently, if anybody there from the town drove up that lane, went to turn out left.
Okay,
It's a Hail Mary.
so what we will ask is that, city staff be asked to have a look at the current conditions
Absolutely.
as well. And maybe there are things that can be done that will mitigate everything that you're speaking.
Yeah, yeah. That's all I'm asking for. They don't want,
Okay.
in the morning, have a coffee. You have to watch kids walk to school, the school buses and vehicles beating there. And it's not safe. It is not safe. It's not a good thing.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to this application? Okay. Committee members. Questions, comments?
Just a question, if this application did not require variance
Mhm.
approval, could this go ahead without a survey being done?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Can I just, but part of that application is for the lot coverage, correct?
Yes,
So that,
correct.
Oh, that's true.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes, we do not require surveys as part of a building permit, so if you are permitted something as of right and you do not require variances. To receive a building permit, if you meet all the requirements of the zoning bylaw, you do not require a survey.
any other questions? Comments? No? Okay,
Excuse me, if you don't require a survey, then how do you know where it is on the plot? Like, how would you know if you don't, if you say, okay, well, no variance, we're gonna allow it to be put on the property, how do you know where it is? If there's no survey? Doesn't make any sense.
so, yeah, and thank you for that comment. So what we're going to do now is, just between the committee, and I'm going to ask for that same wording from the previous application, so that we know what we're looking for when we shoot those lines, if that condition is something that the committee requires.
Sorry, Madam Chair, through you. So the amendments you made on the previous application was amending condition number 2 to ensure that condition number 3 was satisfied. So
So what we want to do is we want to make sure that, yes, please,
let's
Thank
start
you.
there. Okay. So through you, Madam Chair, to the committee, the recommendation from the City of Kenora Associate Planner is that application D13-2510 to seek relief from the City of Kenora bylaw 101-2015, section 4.23E and 3.341B6 is approved to permit a detached secondary dwelling unit with a 1.2 meter exterior side yard and to permit an accessory structure to have a 14.5% coverage of the total lot area, subject to the following conditions. 1, the exterior side lot line abutting 9th Street North and the rear lot line abutting the city lane shall be established by an Ontario land surveyor. Number two, the foundation of the proposed secondary dwelling unit shall be staked by an Ontario land surveyor prior to the issuance of a building permit. And number three, the secondary dwelling unit shall be constructed consistently with the site plan provided by the applicant.
May I have a motion to, so we can open this discussion, please? Andrea, and a seconder, please. Eric, okay. Comments? Questions?
Well, just in terms of the safety of that road, we incorporate some sort of a recommendation. I mean, I'm not sure how much time road spent there looking at it, but just to make sure that it is safe.
Yeah, ask staff to revisit.
Yes.
For current conditions.
Yes.
Okay. So, and I think that's something in the minutes, that if you could make sure that that goes forward to the road supervisor, that would be.
Because on the other side of the lane, like the neighbor, he just has a parking pad with stuff, so the parking pad wouldn't obscure being able to look down Ninth through the lane.
You have to drive it to see it, like, I mean.
Yeah.
It's just.
I drove by, but I don't think I paid attention to that.
Yeah.
So we're at the point now, I'm sorry for both of you, but this is the point where it's just between the committee now, okay? Thank you.
And currently the like view seems to be obstructed by a bush.
Madam Chair, I think I agree with, Member Bowman that the town needs to look at the safety angle a little closer and spend a bit of time, because that's a concern to me.
Alrighty.
Also, it's a 50% increase, and like there was some file that came for like a severing of lots, and it's like the second house should have been built in the first place, and then they want to sever the lot later on. And like, if you're allowed to put 10% buildings on your property, and we're letting it go to like 14.5, nearly like half, 50% more than you ought to have. It just doesn't seem minor, like it's a pretty small lot.
So. We amend I'd like to make an amendment to the condition as it stands right now. To ensure that the reason for the surveying, if we choose to go that way, is clear. So, for the third condition, or did I write that down? Yes, please.
The third condition reading as follows. The secondary dwelling unit shall be constructed consistently with the site plan provided by the applicant.
Can we add to that, but not closer than not closer to the 9th Street than the existing accessory garages? Okay, Ms. Vader.
Can I provide clarification on the lot coverage? So the applicant is seeking relief from accessory structure lot coverage. Overall lot coverage in the R1 zone is 40%. The applicant is under the overall lot coverage. The zoning bylaw contains a separate provision for accessory structures. So that's the provision that he's seeking to vary, not the overall lot coverage.
Thank you. So, if we add that, does that meet the intent of the conditions? You want to make sure that it's not going to be closer to the road, and that's the reason why you want the survey done, correct?
Yes, the survey's intention is similar to the prior application. We want to ensure that if the variance is approved, the setbacks are maintained as approved and we are not encroaching upon them.
Okay. So does everybody from the committee, yes,
Is there a different way to state that without making him go through getting a survey for that?
No. It's, the committee can impose that condition requiring a survey of those lot lines, or they can choose not to impose those conditions. And through the building permit process, I do review a site plan, but that site plan would be probably very similar to the site plan provided as part of this application. And the lot lines would be the lot lines as known by the property owner, not as established by a surveyor.
Yes,
If the committee chose to forgo the survey, they could still include that no part of the proposed structure could project closer to the road than the existing. So that is an option that committee does, as well as, survey the non-survey.
I guess just like rethinking when I was there earlier today, I would prefer to see an application to like put a new garage in with a second story over.
so, but this is the application in front of us, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be deliberating on. So, based on then what the director has explained, are there any comments or questions about the survey?
I would be satisfied with it saying that we don't need the survey as long as it's built in relation to the existing lot lines of the garage to property line relationship. And I just also want to comment to Andrea's comment that there are quite a few homes in the community that are existing with small dwellings built as an accessory dwelling and have been there for many, many years, and maybe not so many in the neighborhood you're in currently. I'm not sure, I'm not looked in detail, but I know all throughout Lakeside, there are a lot of small homes with a small home on the back of it, and they've existed happily in those neighborhoods for 100 or more years. So I personally am very much in favor of this concept.
Okay, so the motion before us is the motion that we were circulated. We'll do it that way, I think. So as circulated, and that's what the motion before us now. And we have a mover and we have a seconder. I'd like to see a vote on that, please. So all in favor? Right, so unanimously, this motion has been is not going forward, but we need a second motion then. Right? So the mover is Renee.
So move to amend the motion to address the point that Kara was just mentioning about.
So amend the motion to state that the secondary dwelling unit shall not encroach further into the side yard than the existing accessory garage.
Madam Chair, through you to member Renee Robert, are you also looking to strike conditions 1 and 2, which reference the survey, or those being maintained?
No, strike the request for survey.
Okay, so just to clarify, the request for a survey is in condition number 1 that the exterior lot line abutting 9th Street and the rear lot line abutting the city lane be established by an Ontario Land Surveyor. We will strike that in your amended motion. And we will strike condition number 2, the foundation of the proposed secondary dwelling unit shall be staked by an Ontario Land Surveyor prior to the issuance of a building permit. However, you would like to amend the only remaining condition, which will be the secondary dwelling unit shall be constructed consistently with the site plan provided by the applicant. And I guess I will put the accessory structure, the secondary dwelling shall be built not closer to 9th Street than the existing accessory structure garage.
But how do we reflect Robert's point though, about the city doing a safety review?
So that's something that that I've asked that they put into the minutes that they follow up on and request that the road supervisor visits and so I mean, I did go there a couple of times as well. So maybe at that point, there's some trimming or something that could happen, something that will
That
be
they come out with
helpful in general,
recommendations.
because currently the neighborhood does not feel that it's safe, right?
Madam Chair, so do we defer at this point and wait for that information to come back, or do we proceed?
So that's something the committee can consider. We
Need a motion to amend.
need a motion to amend right now for, yeah, so do you? So the motion to amend this, or do you want to do a motion, discuss the deferral? We'd have to have a motion for deferral. And for what reasons? And when we'd like to bring this application back. Okay, and then we'd have a vote on that.
I wasn't sure the process, if we had to defer it, getting more information, how that would work.
I move for deferral
So what are
Or-
you looking for in the
for
deferral?
the road safety inspection comments
From-
until next month
From the city of.
from the city.
Do I have a seconder for that? Linda, okay, so all in favor of that? Okay. So, yeah, that was then, the application will be deferred then for a more fulsome report, I guess, on safety from the road supervisor.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
it doesn't have to necessarily be a month. Thinking of timelines, I don't know.
Well,
We can't bring
otherwise,
it back until our next meeting
I thought you-
unless he applied for a special meeting.
Yes.
Madam Chair, through you to the Director of Building and Planning, do you foresee that being a concern to receive that comment from the roads department in advance of our next regular scheduled meeting for July 15th, 16th? No. So back to you, Madam Chair, it should be advisable that this will be scheduled for the next regular meeting, July 16th. All right.
okay, so, you've heard everything that we've had to say. And so then, there will, likely be any motion that we'll be discussing then, if the staff will get that sorted out as well. And then you come back on July the 16th then. All right, so we're gonna consider next applications for land division, D 10-2503. And who is here to represent that application? Charlotte. I am. You are, okay, and you are? Sorry,
Diane Minister,
and your address, please.
16 James Road.
All right, and you want to just sort of introduce the application, or you're fine? I'm good. Okay, all right. So if Ms. Vader could carry on with that, that would be great.
This is consent to application D 10-2503 for 251-242 Miller Rapids Road. The applicant is Diane Minister. The purpose of this application is to create one new water access lot by severing a parcel from each of the subject properties and consolidating the parcels into one new lot. 4.19 hectares is proposed to be severed. The proposed retained lands under 2 pins is proposed to be approximately 55.9. The location map, this is west of where we are right now, on the Winnipeg River. City staff identified that the subject lands, abut the city's wastewater treatment facilities. Staff did confirm, that a 100-meter separation distance is required for residential uses abutting the facility. This application exceeds this requirement, so there were no concerns relating to that. There were no other concerns, from city staff. The MNR stated that the subject lands are within general use area Kenora Keewatin. The Crown Land Use Policy Atlas report for this area indicates minimum frontages of 46 meters and depths of 90 meters are recommended for future private lots. The proposed lots appear to meet these recommendations. The MR also identified that records indicate the presence of northern pike spawning habitat and as well as a bald eagle nest in proximity to the property. The MNR recommended that the mitigation measures outlined in the September 2023 environmental assessment that was provided as part of this application be followed. These mitigation measures are consistent with existing City of Kenora zoning bylaw provisions and official plan policies for fish spawning area. And the measures will be implemented at the time of a building permit for a dwelling. I do want to clarify, there was an error in the report. I did mention later in the report that there would be a condition on the consent relating to the environmental assessment. I have removed that recommended condition as the recommendations, the mitigation measures in that environmental assessment don't really have an impact on a consent or acceptance. They are best implemented through the site plan review through a building permit. So that is how we are recommending that they are implemented. We did receive comments from TransCanada Pipelines. They identified the presence of 3 high-pressure natural gas pipelines contained within its easements that cross the retained portion of the subject lands. TCPL also owns and operates an industrial-scale compressor station known as Station 49 within 750 meters of the subject lands. TCPL requested regulatory and development requirements in the event of any future activity in proximity to the pipelines be forwarded to the applicant. A full copy of the TCPL comments and requirements were attached to the report, and the report was provided to the applicant. No comments were received from any other agencies. At the time of report submission, no comments were received from members of the public. The planning review, the provincial planning statement, the PPS contains policies relating to rural lands and municipalities. It states the development that can be sustained by rural service levels should be promoted. As this application is proposed to be supported by private on-site sewage and water services, it is consistent with this section of the PPS. The City of Kenora official plan, section 4.8 contains policies for the rural area designation. Residential development is a permitted use in the rural area. Residential development is restricted to single detached dwellings on relatively large service lots serviced by private water and sewage services. Official plan section 8.11 contains policies on land division. This section does allow for lots in the rural area designation to be approved on the basis of water access where road access is not available or appropriate, providing that adequate parking and docking is available. The proposed lot does not have frontage on a public road and is proposed to be a water access lot. 8.11.4 states that where appropriate, conditions of consent, subdivision, and condominium approval and related agreements shall provide for the conservation and protection of cultural heritage resources or the mitigation of adverse effects on cultural heritage resources. Staff identified through the review of this application and utilizing the Ministry of Tourism, Culture, and Sport criteria for evaluating archaeological potential checklists, that this proposed severance does have archaeological potential. So a condition is recommended on this severance that the applicant provide an archaeological assessment. The applicant has actually commissioned this report and we did receive it in advance of this meeting. So this condition has been satisfied. The City of Kenora zoning bylaw contains specific provisions for the rural zone. The proposed severed and retained lots meet these requirements of the zoning bylaw and provided in the table that was in the report. The recommendation, as a result, it is recommended that the Committee of Adjustment approve this consent application and grant conditional consent approval with the following conditions. I'm only going to point out the archaeological assessment, as that is the only sort of unique condition on this severance. Oh, I might lose my, is that you?
That's you. I thought it
Is
was
that
me.
me?
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. The archaeological assessment is a condition, and the other condition is that because the severance is proposing to sever from 2 separate properties, there is a condition that those properties be consolidated on title. And that's everything.
Okay, thank you. So
For the
anybody,
proposed lot, sorry, for the proposed water access lot consolidated, not the 2 retained.
is there anybody who wishes to speak for or against this application? Okay. Committee members. Questions? Nothing?
Yes, when I went out and looked at it, so it's proposed as a water access lot. Is there not a road going in there at all, or because it's on the
It is not a public road.
public road?
So I just, I did ask, a bunch of questions and so, I got answers back from Ms. Vader. I was just, and it's all really in the planning report. And I just had a question because the, application indicated that, that they're, you know, they were not within the, area from the city's sewage treatment plant, but that was addressed by staff, so that was perfect. And yeah, my initial question too was whether or not the municipality owned that road and whether or not easements had been discussed with the applicant. And you indicated that those had been. So a water access lot that's only accessible then, I guess, in the summer. Right, okay. So, any other comments, questions? Okay, may I have the resolution or the motion, please?
Certainly, just for the benefit of those members of the public, the applicant, the agent, and the committee, I will not be reading the conditions, but Ms. Vader has gone through those in great detail. That application D 10-2503 for consent lot creation from the subject lands identified as pins 42174-0260 and 42179-0407 to enable the creation of 1 new lot, approximately 4.19 hectares in size, zone rural with water access only, is approved and provisional consent be granted, subject to the conditions as outlined in the planning report.
You have a mover, please. Linda Casey, or Linda Mitchell, sorry, and seconder Andrea, right? Okay, any more discussion or? Nope, all in favor, please? Okay. That's approved.
That is approved. So thank you for being here with us. You have received provisional approval here this evening. So as identified by the associate planner, you've already started to check off some of those conditions that will form part of that approval process. And we will continue to work through those. You have 2 years to complete the application, or sorry, those conditions. You will receive notice of the decision here this evening, tomorrow via email, and that will list all of those conditions in detail. So any questions you have, you can feel free to reach out to Tara. This application will be subject to appeal period, and that will take us to July 9th.
Okay, next on the agenda is D 10-2504. All right, so I'm guessing the last people standing are likely here to speak to this application. Is there anything you'd like to advise the committee of in advance? No.
I just really needed a little bit more water.
Oh,
Pause
sure.
For a second.
Yeah. So we'll just, if you don't mind, we're just gonna hang on. Robert is not there. So we're just gonna be like 5 minutes if that's okay with everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Rick. And Dean and.
No, that was more like.
No, it's just you. Oh, yeah. No, it wasn't such. Somewhere. I'll just wait for Ms. Shaw to come back and we'll be ready to go. Okay, so is there anything you'd like to tell us in advance? No? Okay, we'll just have Ms. Vader then review the planning report, the highlights for us.
This is D 102504 for 161 Ritchie Road. This application is proposing to sever a piece of land from the subject lands, being 161 Ritchie Road, to be added to 175 Ritchie Road to address the encroachment of the detached garage and driveway. So 0.05 hectares is proposed to be severed and consolidated with 175 Ritchie Road. Retained lands are approximately 1.2 hectares in size. This is a location map, so we're just north of Rabbit Lake. This is the severance sketch showing the approximate area. City staff had no concerns with this application. The MNR had no MNR related concerns and no comments were received from the public at the time of report submission. This is consistent with the provincial planning statement. The City of Kenora official plan allows for in the rural area for the permitted uses. Residential development is permitted in the rural area designation. This isn't changing any of the uses on either of the subject lands. The City of Kenora zoning bylaw contains specific provisions for the RR rural residential zone. The proposal is not expected to result in the retained lot being out of conformity with zoning regulations. Based on city records, the retained land will conform to the lot area minimum, which differs from the site plan provided by the applicant. There was a time where a minor variance was being contemplated. Review of city records, we do not believe that is required. If it is deemed to be required, the minor variance can be applied for during the 2-year provisional consent approval period, if this application receives approval this evening. As a result, it is recommended that the Committee of Adjustment approve this consent application and grant a conditional consent approval with the following conditions. I did put in the condition regarding where violation of any city zoning bylaw is evident, the appropriate minor variance or rezoning be obtained to the satisfaction of the city. So when we do receive surveying, we can confirm that the zoning bylaw is being complied with. And then we just have a condition that the newly created parcel be consolidated on title with the adjacent lots as proposed. Thank you.
Do you have anything to add to this?
No, the north property that we're adding, the additional piece of property is my parents' property. And they moved and now wanting to sell it to my son. So after survey, the survey clearly goes through the garage. So after speaking with the neighbors, we would sever and buy the remaining piece and go with the property lines they've been using for the last 50 years.
Okay, thank you. So any questions, comments from the committee? No? Okay, so, the survey that they've already received is a building location survey, is it, so you'll be able to use that information with the new survey to determine whether or not a minor variance is required? Yes, okay. Good. So may I, everybody's fine, yeah, okay, if you wouldn't mind.
So again, much like the last application, just for transparency, I will not be reading the conditions in detail. Those have been provided to you by Ms. Vader. That application D10-2504 for consent lot addition to enable approximately 0.05 hectares of land to be severed from the subject property identified as 161 Ritchie Road, PIN 42174-0248, and transfer the 0.05 hectares of land to civic address 175 Ritchie Road, PIN 42174-0247 is approved and provisional consent is granted, subject to the conditions outlined in the planning report.
Yeah, I'm a little face. Okay, Eric and a seconder. Okay, Linda. All in favor?
We should have gone first.
But think of the things you learned, why you need, and you could have said why you need a survey.
Oh, you're right, nerd talk.
So I do just have a couple things I have to say. You have received provisional approval here this evening. Notice of the decision will be emailed to you tomorrow. It will be subject to a 20-day appeal period, which takes us to July 9. 2 years from the date of the notice of decision, you will have that timeline to complete those conditions. But outside of the surveying, there wasn't anything that was major unless we do see some zoning bylaw infractions, which are not anticipated at this time. So any questions you have, you can feel free to go through Tara.
Well, just quickly, after the 20 days.
Yeah.
And there's been no appeal.
Yeah.
And then we can go move forward
Yeah.
with getting a surveyor to come and move that in.
You can start with commissioning a surveyor at your
And as soon as you
discretion
get a
as soon as
market?
you get the notice of decision, yeah. We just can't stamp any kind of a transfer until after that appeal date.
Perfect.
So if you already have that survey commissioned and completed, we can wait until after that July 9th date to stamp. It's really up to you to determine how fast you complete those conditions.
Well, thank you so very much.
Have a nice evening.
Have a great evening.
Thanks.
Doesn't look old enough.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, he does.
The North End house is gonna have a second baby here shortly.
Oh.
Yeah, so they're raising their family in that house now too.
Nice.
Thank you, guys. Have a
See you
good
later.
evening.
All right, so no old business, new business. The spring OPA conference member update, so. Linda and I provided just some notes for everybody. And we just thought it's a good way to share and if you have any questions, and we, Melissa has all of the PowerPoint in her, or did you put that up there too?
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
do have that shared with
Yeah.
members.
Okay, so again, I would really recommend anybody who has the opportunity to go. It's well worth it. All right, so then we'll let you go with the Integrity Commissioner investigation.
Yeah, the Integrity Commissioner investigations were provided to council on a public meeting, a public agenda of council. These are not reports of city staff, but we are required to provide them as information only to the members here around the table. Should you have any questions about those investigations or the report that was written, you can certainly email those to myself and I will forward them on to the commissioner. But staff don't have any comments regarding the reports. They were commissioned by the Integrity Commissioner, provided to you as information, as I said.
Okay. All right, so update on the OP zoning bylaw and CIP review. Do you wanna just say where you're at?
Say we're, right now, we're doing a consultation with the indigenous communities, so we have completed 2 of those, and we are
planning the third. CIP is progressing smoothly along. So things are just continuing on.
So I did go and sat through the CIP presentation to council, and it was very interesting to hear. Really, there are three councillors who had strong opinions on how they wanted the CIP to benefit the city. So that was really interesting, and I am interested too in seeing how that final comes out. It was good information. Okay, and committee of adjustment terms of reference.
You want me to speak that? Let's do that. So the Committee of Adjustment Terms of Reference will be undergoing a review. They are actually currently with our city clerk and senior administration. Certain staff and the chair of this committee will be asked to review those and provide comment. At the time that they are made available for the committee, we will be bringing those forward for you as well. I am unaware at this point if we will be doing any formal training yet, so I will leave that to the clerk to answer those questions. But again, it is just a work in progress and we appreciate your patience. But there is a review process undergoing.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have anything else? No?
Can I just make one comment about this? Integrity Commissioner investigation thing. I just have, there are two of us that fell into this. Just for information for committee members. It is quite an onerous process one has to go through. And what I learned out of it is that all the material that we get for these meetings, it's really imperative you go through it. Because the one that I was challenged on was Minnesota Street. And that's the one we had 145 pages of comments. And I kept thinking I must have missed one. Because that's why this one lady went after me. But in fact, I never did miss it, but I did. It just reinforced in my mind how important it was to do your homework before these meetings.
I missed that meeting. Like, I don't remember if the kids were sick or traveling or what, but I just felt.
So maybe that's something that we could make sure that we have training on is, again, I know we did on municipal conference, conflict of interest, but on perceived bias and the quasi judicial nature of this committee, maybe we could just like 5 minutes of just going over that and reminding everybody of how that can affect your decision making and how you don't want it to. Okay? Can we do that? Yeah, Chris.
I'll just share my experience. So Robert shared it, like, mine was actually pretty nice once I realized what he was really asking. So again, I spent about a month basically trying to figure out what he was trying to get at to come up with what my final response would be. So again, all this work that I'd done for like 3 weeks turned out to be like a 2-sentence answer. And so I was overcomplicating it way more than what it needed to be. Because he kept asking the same question. And I was thinking he was trying to delve deeper into it, when all I really had to do was simplify it down to its bare bones. So I don't know if that helps, but I agree with Robert in reading all of it, but mine came down to one word from being investigated and not being investigated. So again, just like that's the difference.
So do you think it would be helpful then to have a little bit of reminder of the bias training?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest shock in learning about this is, again, the separation of the city and ourselves. Again, I knew it, but it didn't really feel like real, like it didn't really anticipate that level of separation. And so, yeah, you realize like you're completely underground. And so it's, yeah. And that I didn't quite think that through when applying for this committee. And so, yeah, that's something I wish I had known back in, what was it, 2012? Yeah. So if I had known I'd be on the hook for all the legal repercussions that I could potentially bring upon myself in this committee, I may reconsider applying for that. Yeah. And I also feel, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna.
Well, I think Madam Chair. I think that, yeah, it's very important to go over the, what your role is and perceived differences. Oops, sorry. Anyways, I think it'd be a great educational tool to go over because it is important. Doesn't matter how far you are from the situation. If there's a perceived notion that you're doing something wrong, they're gonna, if someone's upset, they're gonna pick up on it for sure. So you have to protect yourself, but at the same time do your due diligence.
And it's so easy for somebody to complain
Oh, very much so.
or,
That's what also surprised me.
yeah,
There was like one word. That's.
yeah, it was,
If I had
and
like
then it
one word.
causes months of this.
Lack of sleep.
Oh,
Did you get lawyers involved?
I asked the question, should I get a lawyer involved? And the investigator at the time said, that's up to you, but I don't think it's necessary in this case.
Oh, that was nice of him to say that.
Yeah, he didn't even answer mine. He didn't even answer me when I asked. He was really unprofessional at moments as well. He would reply with stuff about his kids. And yeah, it was really a shocking experience. So,
I'm sorry you guys had to go through it.
I'm
But
kind of
maybe
glad I
we'll
went
learn,
through it.
well, we're gonna learn from it.
Yeah,
I'm kind of glad I went through it. Like, I know what the end goal is now. Like,
For that
you know what I
person.
mean, like, if you can, like, I was just overcomplicating way too much in my case. Yeah.
Where is that file at now?
We have been found not guilty, and it's been closed. And it's now public, so the package that was in your, or the report that was in your package is exactly what we went through.
But the cost to the city too for legal fees, I'm sure will be. And the whole procedure is something else.
all right, well, thank you both for that insight. It is important, I think, that we all understand. Just even our reactions to people. I mean, I personally try to keep a really straight face and do nothing to react to anything anybody says. But then I've had like 20 years of the same, this is a quasi judicial, yeah, committee, and you better not show any bias. So, yeah, so I would recommend, even as a small thing, but yeah, but thank you for sharing that.
I realized that after I opened my mouth towards that lady's comments about their, so I guess about business and their location, and like, oh, I
Yeah.
maybe
Well, and
should have
then-
left that
right.
for somebody else to answer, it's not really
But the
my
other,
thing, but.
and the other thing is that when people, and they don't understand it quite, that they are supposed to speak through me, and so you'll note that staff says through the chair, to
Yes.
you.
Right.
So
I
if you-
recognize that. I've
yeah, if you
spoken
guys could
to
do the
they
same
have
thing,
to Say to
And
you,
then
to
they
them.
will understand better too.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much, everybody. Yeah. You're good. Oh, yeah, we have to adjourn. Okay, Andrea's out of here. Yeah, she
Oh,
wants
come
to.
on, all of us in there, raise your hand.
All right.
Payback for nothing.
So the archaeological debate,
Andrea,
find anything?
that was my
Or
first.
because it's flooded.
So I will be